Hello students, I want to talk about 5 quick things that will help us throughout the semester understand our study of interviewing. The first is we're going to break interviews down into 2 parts, the interviewer and the interviewee. And this represents the 2 sides of the coin. You always have 2 parties in an interview, an interviewer party and an interviewee party. And we're going to abbreviate this so we can understand it a little better. The interviewer, just shorthand, writing on the board, on exams, quizzes, in the reading, that sort of thing, we're going to refer to as the RR. This is the person who's conducting the interview. This is the journalist. This is the person who's doing the hiring. This is anyone who's asking questions, seeking answers. This is the police officer who pulls over the speeding driver. This is the interviewer. And we're going to spend a lot of time on how to ask questions and how to be this person called the interviewer in an interview. And then the other thing we're going to do is focus on the interviewee. And we're going to abbreviate that with an EE so you'll know what that refers to on exams. This is the person who's being interviewed. Typically, you think of this person a lot because you're going to be wanting to be hired soon when you graduate from college. So this is you and the person who is going to be interviewed, the EE. But that's not the only perspective we're going to focus on. Sure, we're going to spend time on how to be a good interviewee. We're also going to spend time on how to be a good interviewer. Now, the next thing I want to focus on is how we're going to divide all the interviews we talk about throughout the semester. We're going to divide them into 3 parts: the opening, the body, and the closing. Every interview, you'll be able to break it down and know what to do in each of these 3 parts. Let's just break it down just a little bit to give you an introduction to it. All right, the opening is really simple. It's just what it says. It's the start of the interview. There are specific things we do in the start of an interview, and we'll be talking about those later. Some things are like handshakes, introductions, build rapport, pay attention to our nonverbals, and we'll learn something called orientation a little later on. But they're very specific things that we do to open an interview. And we'll even learn techniques for doing that, for opening interviews. The next part is the body. Now, this is what most people think of. It's the actual questions you ask in the interview. An interview obviously involves coming up with a list of questions and asking them to somebody. So this is the main part, the meat, the big part of the interview are the questions. And there are certain ways you structure the questions, types of questions, the way you ask, the sequence of the questions. We'll be learning all of that, but that's sort of the second part, the second way we're going to divide our interviews into. The third and final part is the closing. It's just simply how you end the interview. And there's, again, very specific things you do. There are techniques to use. You thank the interviewee. You give the interviewee a chance to ask questions. There are very specific things you do in the closing to make it a success. Just like the other 2 elements, there are things you do to make that a success too. So I just wanted to introduce you to those 2 terms, or those 5 terms really, the EE and the RR, and to these 3 ways we're going to divide every interview into. You should be able to take any interview I give you and divide it into an opening, a body, and a closing, and be able to talk about what's important in each one and what you do in each one. That's it. Thanks a bunch.